Sharks are undeniably awesome. There are more than 500 species of sharks alive today. They range from the dwarf lantern shark that can fit into the size of our hands, to the bull shark that can swim 1,000 miles up the Mississippi River, all the way to St. Louis. There's a great white shark that swam from South Africa to Australia. That's 7,000 miles in 99 days. She hung out for a couple of months, turned around, went back home. And then there's the Greenland shark, which we think that lives all the way to 250 or 500 years old. It can tolerate the frigid waters of the Arctic all the way to the tropical waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Sharks today have a diverse sense of lifestyles and preferences, but how do they compare to ancient sharks? Luckily, fossil shark teeth are abundant, and their chemistry can reveal to us information about past sharks' physiology, habitat, and diet. Sharks have been around for a long time. This is the geologic timescale that's illustrated by artist Ray Troll. We are today on top, and then the dinosaurs, they were around during the Mesozoic, which you can see in green, and then we have Paleozoic, which is where sharks evolved, and that's in blue. Paleozoic sharks were weird. We have Helicoprion that had these crazy tooth whorls that looked like a buzzsaw. We had Iniocopterygians that had wing-like fins. And then we had Stethocanthus that had this huge dish on the back of his back. These sharks have gone extinct, but there's something about the lifestyle of sharks that has proven successful despite all of the past climate change and extinction events through geologic time. Most of what we know about past climate comes from cores. In the past 500,000 years, that comes from ice cores, taken from the Arctic and the Antarctic. Over the past 65 million years, it's recorded in deep ocean sediment cores. Living in these waters and experiencing these oceans were sharks. But how different was climate in the past? Global temperatures have fluctuated over the past 65 million years. This graph is complicated, but I'm going to walk you through it. Here we have how temperature has changed over millions of years. Here we have how temperature has changed over thousands of years. And here we have historical, modern, and future projections of climate change. This dashed line here represents the average temperature from 1960 to 1990, a time period that most of us can probably relate to. And all the colored squiggly lines here are the data from ocean sediment cores and ice cores, temperatures that we've logged today, and then the future climate projections. All these temperatures are relative to that average of 1960 to 1990. What you can see is that temperature has changed a lot. But what I want you to focus on is this projection for the next 200 years. Look at that rate of change. It is unprecedented in geologic time. What used to take us tens of millions or hundreds of thousands of years is going to be in 200 years. That's a blink of an eye. These past ocean conditions are encoded in the chemistry of fossil shark teeth. The climate data from the cores is very detailed and very accurate, but they don't give us the entire perspective, which we can get from shark teeth. There are other chemicals in shark teeth that tell us things about their body temperature, the salinity of their water, and what they're eating. By looking at global patterns through time in different shark teeth, we can see how ancient sharks survived or went extinct. Essentially, the fossil record offers us past climate experiments. We can test different parts of this shark family tree. And this could give us insight to how sharks will adapt with the current climate crisis. One of the most fascinating sharks is Megalodon. It went extinct about 3.5 million years ago, which we're probably pretty excited. Look at the size of that tooth. It's the size of the dwarf lantern shark. And Megalodon, it was huge. It makes white sharks look like a baby shark. When I was a graduate student, a journalist called the lab when we had landlines, and they asked, If I send you a meg tooth, can you analyze the chemistry and tell me what it was eating? My answer was no. They very quickly hung up. But I am here to report that we have made scientific advances in the past 15 years, and I can give you an answer to that question now. It turns out that the chemistry within meg teeth, based on 2 new chemical markers that we've found, tell us that meg was at the top of the food chain. In fact, it may have extended the food chain from anything that we know today. You can't help but look at this tooth and ask, what did it eat? Why did it go extinct? There's also chemical evidence that Megalodon was potentially able to elevate its body temperature relative to the ambient seawater, sort of like what white sharks can do today. And this combination of being a hyper apex predator with the higher energetic needs could have been what led to its demise as the global environment changed. Much of my research focuses on the Eocene. This is a time period 35 to 55 million years ago, when temperatures were warm and carbon dioxide levels were high. Oftentimes, geologists use this time period as an analog for modern and future climate change. During this time, sharks spanned the globe, as you can see from the distribution of their teeth found today. There's one species that spanned this entire area from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and that's the sand tiger. Both in the Arctic and the Antarctic, on land it was lush, temperate forest, and the oceans were teeming with sharks, which is very different than those places today. I'll never forget the first data that I saw from these Eocene Arctic sharks. I knew I had prepared the teeth. I was sure I didn't screw anything up and get things mixed, but when I looked at the data, the sharks looked like they were in fresh water. There are almost 10,000 fossil shark teeth from Arctic sediments, and almost all of them are from these sand tigers. What these data tell us is that sand tigers, they could survive in less salty water and colder water, which is different than sand tigers today. Sand tigers today prefer warm, salty waters. The other thing that these Arctic Eocene shark teeth can tell us is comparisons between these different localities. The Eocene Arctic shark teeth that we found were quite small, and if we compare them to other locations, we've actually found that these smaller distribution of teeth, which correspond to younger sharks, that they're actually found in nearshore habitats. Sand tigers also use nearshore habitats today when they're younger, and these are called nurseries. Nurseries are places where there's ample food, but also protection from predators. And this is an important combination. Sand tigers have been using these nearshore habitats for the last 50 million years, but these nearshore habitats are threatened today by humans from pollution, development, and fishing. So I've taken you on a pretty wild ride of sharks, everything from their evolution to modern day. And it might be shocking to you, but I didn't actually start off wanting to become a shark scientist. I'm actually a total nerd and obsessed with stable isotopes, the chemistry that's encoded in the shark teeth. But over 20 years, I've learned that people are really excited to talk to me as a shark scientist and not so much as a stable isotope biogeochemist. I will admit, though, that somewhere along the way, I also became obsessed with sharks. And that's the thing, sharks get people really excited. I have been able to go to scientists who do nothing related to sharks and ask them questions and get them to think about my little sliver of science. And oftentimes they'll even collaborate with me. My research is at the interface of biology, chemistry, and geology. And I get excited at being in this interdisciplinary space. The best part of my job, though, is bringing this excitement and curiosity to others. My research group at the University of California, Merced, spans sharks in all their glory, but we also study wildfire, soil nutrient dynamics, wolves, and bioarchaeology. This diversity has been a huge asset. When we had some funky shark data, we were able to have somebody on the team that works on fish ear bones give us recommendations. In trying to develop those new methods for Megalodon, we drew on methods that the soil scientists use. And so it's important for us to think about science holistically. I would say that the largest missed opportunity right now in science is from the systematic bias and lack of inclusion of marginalized identities. We face larger barriers, fewer opportunities, both in being able to do the science from a funding perspective, but also in getting support from mentors. Scientific data has shown us the benefit to biodiversity in dealing with the health and resilience of a coral reef, for example. And we should be approaching science the same way, both in diversity of perspectives of disciplines, but also the scientists who are doing the work. There is data that shows that the scientific impact of a study is directly related to the diversity of the team doing that science. Recently, there's been a number of community networks that have popped up that elevate these marginalized voices. They give opportunities and collaboration to these scientists. Hopefully, these community networks will be able to make becoming a shark scientist more accessible. What new research findings, what brink are we on the verge of finding out with these new voices and perspectives? People love sharks. Shark Week has been running on Discovery Channel for 35 years. There's Shark Fest on National Geographic for 14 years. There's no other animal that has 2 weeks of programming across popular media. Kids of all ages also love sharks. There's the viral Baby Shark song. There's so much kids' clothing. Sharks even made it into the Super Bowl halftime show. Do you remember that? The left shark? The movie Jaws is an iconic part of American history, and we all recognize the theme song and associate it with sharks. Sharks are awesome. They can tell us so much about today, but maybe more importantly, we need to look at fossil shark teeth so that we can understand things from the past like water temperature, ocean currents, and the food chain. We can make comparisons from millions of years ago to today. And the most important thing to shark conservation is looking at it holistically and preserving the biodiversity in terms of the questions that are asked, the disciplines that are looked at, and the scientists who are doing that work. Thank you.